Hey, what's up everyone, it's Phil Meyer. I'd like to show you my level 100 Pictomancer controller cross hotbar layout with the intention that the details will guide you with your layout. First, this video assumes you have some amount of experience with Pictomancer and the controller. If you need a refresher on either, check the video description where you can find links to my previous guide videos. One of the things I focus on when setting up a controller layout is optimizing instant cast skills on face buttons so I can quickly perform them while maintaining movement with the left analog stick. For Pictomancer, this is especially true, as Pictomancer skills are split between having long or instant cast times. So let's get into it. First off, I've placed the core Aetherhues spells on the directional pad, specifically with the right trigger since this is my dominant hand. Even though these are the attacks you'll be using most often, because of their lengthy cast times, the face buttons would be better used for other skills. Instead, Holy in white, Comet in black, and Star Prism go on the face button cluster on this part of the base hotbar. The three of these are instant cast attack spells, so having them on face buttons makes them convenient to use while shifting positions on the battlefield. Substractive Palette is on this cluster as well. It's also cast instantly, so I'm able to switch spells while moving, but more importantly in this case, this also allows me to perform the palette change and continue casting Aetherhues spells without having to shift into another section of the hotbar. This is a small optimization, but since this is something I do often, I think it makes a notable difference. On the left trigger's D-pad is where I've placed my Motifs skills. These have a long cast time during combat, so it makes sense to assign to the directional buttons. You'll notice I've also placed Swiftcast in this cluster, but I do have Swiftcast duplicated elsewhere. This is purely for convenience, since Pictomancer's actions currently don't require all the slots on both hotbars. I often chain Swiftcast with Creature Motif, so having it in the same cluster makes that combo quicker. That leads us to the face button cluster on the same side of the base hotbar. Smudge is a directionless gap closer that I frequently use in combat to move out of danger quickly. It's easiest to do that when I'm already moving, then activate the skill to dash in the same direction. This cluster is also where I keep Living Muse and Mog of the Ages. These become instant cast attack spells, so it makes sense to have them on face buttons, but additionally keeping them on the same side of the base hotbar as Creature Motif makes it easier to chain them together. The last ability here is Scenic Muse. In my opinion, it isn't as important to have this on a face button specifically, even though it is cast instantly. The reason is that since the skill places an effect area on the ground, I generally don't move much after activating it, as I try to keep my position within that area of effect. However, having it on the same button as Substractive Palette makes it more convenient to combo them in succession. Since activating Starry Muse grants you a free use of Substractive Palette, this lets me keep my thumb on the same button to chain them, only shifting which trigger is activated. This is again a little detail, but I find it really does help. Next, let's look at the right trigger side of the double crossbar. Steel Muse is on the bottom face button and Hammer Stamp is on the left. Keeping these together feels intuitive, as I can shift into the double crossbar, activate Steel Muse, and then initiate the Hammer Stamp combo, all while not needing to stop movement or shift crossbar sections. On the other two face buttons is where I have Rainbow Drip and another copy of Swiftcast. Rainbow Drip isn't used as often as the other attack spells, which is one reason to have it on the double crossbar. It does get cast instantly when you're under the effect of Rainbow Bright, however, which warrants it being on a face button. Since I also have Swiftcast here, it lets me chain it with Rainbow Drip without having to switch to another hotbar section or interrupt movement. Now let's look at the last face button cluster, which is the left trigger side of the double crossbar. This is where I have Tempera Coat. Since Tempera Coat provides a protective shield and is cast instantly, it's best to have it in a face button so I can quickly use it even when moving. This lets me quickly use it for extra protection whenever I find myself in a sticky position that I need to get out of. Addle is also in this cluster, so I can again more easily apply its effect while moving. You'll notice that I still have two of these face buttons free, even though I have Sleep and Lucid Dreaming on the D-pad section of this side of the double crossbar. These abilities could definitely be on the face button spots, but the main reason I have them on the D-pad is for consistency with my other job controller layouts. It really isn't as important that these skills are accessible while moving, and instead the consistency between my job layouts is more important to me. A similar thing applies with the last cluster of the double crossbar. Surecast is also on one of the directional buttons for consistency with my other controller layouts. Because Pictomancer's current kit doesn't require all the space on both hotbars, I also have another copy of Addle on a directional button. This is for convenience, as when I'm casting Aetherhues spells, I often realize I'm able to reapply Addle on my target. It's just a little more convenient to shift up into the double crossbar and hit a directional button that I'm already using, instead of having to shift over into the left trigger side of a crossbar. Lastly, since I have other spots free, I also keep an emergency potion in this cluster. My expanded hotbar is currently shared across all of my jobs, and on the face buttons I keep common actions that I want to access quickly in combat. These specifically are macros for targeting, along with sprint, which is on the top face button for consistency with the default jump button. I keep a secondary set of crossbars for additional combat actions that I don't necessarily need to use super quickly. This is where I keep limit break, waypoint markers, and chocobo commands. So this is my current Pictomancer controller setup, and I'm pretty happy with the layout it came to. Let me give you a final thought on this. Because you can slot all of Pictomancer's abilities without fully using up 2 hotbars, there is more flexibility in where actions can be placed. The primary takeaway that I think is most helpful with the layout is for sure keeping Aetherhues and Motif abilities on base hotbar directional buttons. This allows for more agility when using those instant cast skills, which definitely makes the job feel more fluid. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope that this walkthrough helped you with your controller setup. Like usual, keep adventuring and take care.